Now, when I really start to dive into this argument, I am going to announce that I'm playing devil's advocate. I still believe Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. However, I am very open to the idea that there's some other greatest quarterback of all time. And I think one of the easy examples to point at is Joe Montana. I feel as if Tom Brady hasn't won the last two Super Bowls, we would still be talking about Joe Montana being the greatest quarterback of all time. And I'm just going to be mentioning their points because I still think it's a argument there. It's still reasonable. It's still fair. You got to be, I feel, considerate of it because I feel like there's still something there to dive into. Now, when it comes to Joe Montana, obviously he was a fantastic quarterback. Obviously, his comparison was he was the Tom Brady of the 80s. I think that's a pretty good comparison since they both won in clutch moments and they both did the short passing game and all of that. So there's a lot of similarities between them. But I think one thing you could say about Joe Montana is this is the easiest one. He's never lost a Super Bowl. Whenever he got to the Super Bowl, he kicked ass, basically. There was only one Super Bowl where he played close in, and that was against the Bengals. But hey, he got topped it off of a 90-yard game-winning drive, which is very, very impressive. Also, he won with two different head coaches when he won his four Super Bowls. Three with Walsh, and I believe the fourth one was with George Seahawks. I'm kind of blanking on the name of the second guy, but George Seahawks, I think he won with the second one. And also, when he won those Super Bowls, and two of the Super Bowls that he won, he beat Elway and Marino, which is very impressive. Obviously, you're talking about Elway. Some people even think Elway's the greatest quarterback of all time. Dan Marino was he's more of a stat hound. However, he's definitely one of those quarterbacks who's up there. And when I put that in perspective, you look at that, if you compare it to Tom Brady, what elite quarterbacks has Tom Brady played against? Well, he's played against, I guess, Kurt Warner. But Kurt Warner, some people would say, is a controversial Hall of Fame candidate because in the prime of his career, he was not good. And I think a lot of people like to point out dome numbers and whatnot. So as a way to help the Joe Montana argument, you can lower the competition level of Tom Brady. You could say that, well, he's really hasn't gone on against great defenses in the past. The only great defense that he's beat is the Seattle Seahawks, and that was much later in his career and whatnot. And really, he's never really had a great quarterback duel or faced against any great quarterbacks. And I think when you look at that, I think that's something that you could definitely do, especially when you're comparing against another player like Tom Brady. But what you would do is you could I think one thing you could do is when it comes to supporting cast, to support Joe Montana, you would talk less about a supporting cast, but you would talk more about Tom Brady's supporting cast. So you can't I don't like the idea of completely hating on a team. And it's for two reasons. Number one, this reason's it's more of a luxury, but it looks like you're kind of giving slack to the argument, saying that, well, I don't think Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, but I think Randy Moss is the greatest wide receiver of all time. That's something about giving slack right there. Well, I might not be a Tom Brady guy, but I definitely think Randy Moss is great, and it's good there. And not only that, it shows that the player won with better surrounding talent around him. So you could talk even higher about Rob Gronkowski to lower Tom Brady's status, but you have to talk a little bit lower of Jerry Rice to raise Montana's status. That's the way you could bring about on it. And I think that's definitely something I like to do. And just to continue on with the point is when it comes to Steve Young was a very successful understudy. Tom Brady, it looks like he's had a couple understudies around him, Matt Castle, Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, and looks like Jimmy Garoppolo looks like he can be good. I think he can be something. However, the only successful one out of the three that we really saw given starting quarterback jobs of other teams is Matt Castle, and he really just has one Pro Bowl, so he's not that impressive. He was probably just okay. So you could talk about how Steve Young learned from that and how he benefited from that. Also, this one's a really, really important one about Joe Montana, is Joe Montana revolutionized offenses. If you look at the offense Joe Montana plays in, he plays in the West Coast system. Yes, the West Coast system is one of the most popular systems in the NFL. I think 1/3 of the NFL runs the system. You can name Aaron Rodgers runs the system. Russell Wilson runs the system. It's very popular for good reason, and a lot of people are using it. Tom Brady's system is very kind of unique, and I don't really see other quarterbacks really running it And I just put that up there that Montana kind of brought something to the game that really a lot of other people could strive for. And to continue on with stats and whatnot, is I never, when it comes to stats, you all know what my thing about stats is. I don't really like to compare players when it comes to stats, and especially when it's in different eras. So if someone was arguing Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time because he has more touchdown passes thrown than Joe Montana, you could say, well, Joe Montana played in a harder era. That's something that you could put on there. And you would also, when I talk about the surrounding cast and the supporting cast, this would also go for coaches too. You could say how you would probably have to talk a lot more higher of Bill Belichick, and now Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time, versus Bill Walsh, you could say, was only there for a 10-year period, and Joe Montana won a Super Bowl without him. So you could always kind of make that argument, kind of compare contrast. And those are some things that I like to say when it comes to arguing, because everything's literally an argument. And even though I still think Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, I still think there's a reasonable argument for why Joe Montana could still be considered. All right, guys, I was thinking about doing a video, maybe how to argue Randy Moss is the greatest wide receiver of all time, something like that. I might do that over the weekend around then, because tomorrow I'm going to get my Week 3 picks in. Obviously, Week 1 was pretty good. Week 2, yeah, not so much. So I'm thinking about doing that. My last video was on how Eli Manning is a product of an offensive line. Click in the link in the description if you are interested, and I'll link a bunch of other videos that are fairly similar to this content. And also, if you missed any of the points that I said in this video, I'll put them down in the description below. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you guys, or see you guys next time. Peace.